Hello and welcome to the King Heroes Journey podcast. My name is Beth Martins and I am here today with Steve Falconer. Super, super happy to have you. Hello, Steve.
Hi, Beth. Great to be here. And yeah, it's fun. I've been looking forward since Acapulco, so gonna be
Likewise.
cool.
Likewise. Yeah. So we can just chat for a minute. I need to set up Rockfin because it's a manual thing. So if you give me a
Oh
minute
yeah,
for that. And we're going live on YouTube, Rockfin, X, Facebook, Rumble. I think that's it. And all of these get uploaded to my podcast after as well.
great. I
Yeah.
don't even know how to do all that. I wish I knew how to multi-stream. It's too much for me.
StreamYard does most of it, but many of the platforms, especially the not so popular ones, there we are going live on Rockfin. You have to do all kinds of stuff. So I'm very grateful. I'm going to shout out to my assistant Christine. She keeps me sane, allows me to do a lot more than I could have ever done on my own. And so here, first of all, I'm going to share a link to the Spacebuster channel that you have over on YouTube, so people could click on that and go and check that out.
We're also on BitChute, Odyssey, Vigilante TV. I think we have a Rumble channel, but I never go on there.
Right. How did you score Vigilante TV? Or actually, I heard you say it, you just showed up there.
Yeah, they put us on. We found out on accident that they gave us a channel, which was great. So
Awesome.
that was
I was,
cool.
I was thinking about putting my hand up for that one. Pretty good at
Are
putting
you on there as well?
I am not. No.
Okay.
Considering someone is telling me, why aren't you up there? I see all the other people are up there. So here's a Rockfin link. If anyone prefers to jump on over there, please feel free to do that. Hello, Carol Ashton. Nice to see you. And Plasu Platus is here, and Patricia Burlow. Welcome, folks. So we're going to have a very interesting conversation today on some things that, it's hard to find. You're a good researcher, Steve, and I'll take a minute to introduce you as well. But you don't mind stepping off and coloring outside the lines in places where you can't prove a lot of anything and can be called conjecture, but it also can be called research that you do inside yourself. That's what I'm personally a very big fan of. So Steve, if you don't know him, is a former Chicago native living in Copenhagen, Denmark. Please say hi to Jack for me, by the way.
Oh yeah, will do. I think Jack's watching actually, or he's going to be soon. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Good.
He'll be
It
in
was really
here.
nice to meet him as well. And Steve is a father and researcher into all things hidden, esoteric, and out of the ordinary daily experience, with a gift for debunking or demystifying occulted information. I was junking out on your series on Atlantis last night. I didn't,
Yeah.
I didn't make it all the way to the end, but it was really good because I have always just not looked into that, and I sort of know about it in the background. And it was really fun just to see all of the overlays that you did with the maps. And hello, John Wills, nice to see you. It is fun to go and go off the map and consider these much more deep, what can be only inner experiences. But because we can talk to each other and we can corroborate and see from each other's eyes, talk about things that are very abstract, then somehow it's always very satisfying. So we're going to talk about life and death and life after death. And
Well, you can't really get more abstract than that because again, I'll put a disclaimer. I've never had a near-death experience. Have you?
I actually have. Yes.
Great. Then I can't wait to hear it. And I don't astral travel. I have woken up in the middle of dreams by trying to look at my hands. And then when you realize you don't have them, you figure out you're in a dream. But I've never had a near-death experience. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today, I have to put my Spacebusters disclaimer. It's a lot. We are going to be talking abstract and conjecture for me. I'm going to be talking about, I've researched a lot of different sides of this, and I have friends who have had them and been to seances with very real experiences. So I don't put my belief in one thing or another. I just say, I look at several perspectives of what might happen or what's going on here or all that. And what I say is not the truth, and it's not the truth. It's just my perspective, and that's it.
That's great. And I'll also let people know, and you as well, that I was inspired to have you here because I got to wake up every morning. You were my downstairs neighbor
Yeah.
in Acapulco, and I just noticed how you're always cheerful, you're always friendly, and you're always open-spirited, large-hearted. Even, we didn't know each other, but there was just no sense of like, "Who are you?" or "I need to know if you're important before I talk to you," or but, there wasn't a lot of that this year. I have to say. It wasn't nearly as, snooty as, I don't know, other events that I've been to can be. And yeah, I saw you going kind of Olympic style too, because I was the one who would go to bed at 10 o'clock every night, or at least try to sleep, which was difficult to do. And I noticed you burned the candle at both ends. You were up at night and playing at Max's bar, and then up early in the morning and jamming with all of us. So good on,
Yeah.
good on you. How do you do that?
I don't know. Last to bed. I thought I was first to rise, but then I'd get out there and they're all out there already in the ocean and doing qigong and all their crap. I was like, Jesus, man. I thought I'm just going to get rid of my hangover. So, yeah, it was my first event. I don't really do events and stuff, so I didn't know what to expect. I was really pleasantly. I was happy with it. I thought it was just amazing. Really, yeah, great
Mhm.
event.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'm already personally looking forward to next year. I hear it is a real thing. It's going to happen again. And hello, Missy Bear, by the way. Welcome. Good to have you here. So let's dive in and start talking about life and death. And I'll tell you, Steve, this is actually a really big part of the work that I do. I know you and I get to know each other better. Maybe I'll be on your channel at some point as well. And because I almost died 25 years ago, after I was told that I wouldn't survive after a second diagnosis of a serious cancer. I shouldn't say that word over here, but we'll use the C word, I guess. Then it forced me to look at something that otherwise I may not have, because in this culture we're indoctrinated that, you know, death is evil, that you don't talk about it. If you've been through the death of family members or friends, you might notice how incredibly awkward that is, that nobody knows how to be. And there certainly are cultures that do. So it's one of those subjects that people tend to run for the hills. And then this was the point I wanted to make, that there's not a single day that goes by that someone doesn't tell me, and this could be you too, that they are not afraid to die. And so this is a really big subject. I'm actually just about to send out to the Acapulco people that took my King's Calling workshop an audio on how to deprogram that what I call the death program. It's very big, it's very prevalent, and it makes no exceptions. And it is how we're controllable. So I love this subject.
Did you cross? So did you have like the near death experience? Did you die and come back, or did that happen to you? Or
It wasn't the typical "I saw the light" kind of thing that you'll hear over and over and over again with, and I haven't done a deep dive into people's near death experiences. Strangely, I have my own. I just got to that point where there was no more fight and no more life.
right?
And I had called in a lot of emergencies up until that point. At this point, I decided, okay, I'm not calling it in. My body is not even able to sit up. There's nothing I can do to make myself happy. There's no life left to live here. I stopped fighting. That's that classic thing that they, go team, real warrior like, survive this at all costs. And I had been like that. And finally, all of that was gone. And I just surrendered to death. I let it have me. And so I slipped through this kind of liminal place, but very quickly landed in myself, in a space that was entirely full of life and not full of death at all. Exactly the opposite of what I expected. I was filled with life to such a great degree that I went into remission from the cancer that I was, the first round of cancer that I had been diagnosed with. And I downloaded all kinds of insights and awareness. I'll go into more detail about that, but came back and lived to tell. I was still re-diagnosed 18 months later. So it wasn't like that was behind me, but it was the first time that I just came face to face with death and didn't run from it.
I mean, the thing is, I like to look at a lot of Eastern philosophy and also Western, Hermeticism or magicians versus Gnostics, and there's a difference. But what's really going on is you're either here in the present, as the Eastern mystics will tell you. There's only now. There's no, and there isn't even that, because that's moving all the time. So it's all an illusion. But most people's mind and consciousness is either worried about what's going to happen tomorrow or what has happened to them in the past and their victim. There's only now. So really, you may as well be dead. If you're not here right now, then you are dead already. And anyway, as soon as you're born, as Bob Dylan saying, he who's not busy being born is busy dying. From the time you're born, you're dying. But really, even what we're going to talk about, it doesn't really matter what happens after you die, which we're going to get into speculatively for me, because I've never had a near-death experience. You're going to be there either way, whether you're there or not, or whatever happens, or you see the light or get a life review, or you shut your eyes and wake up as a newborn baby, or whatever happens. You have no choice. Just like you don't have a choice what's going to happen to you 1 second from now. It's going to happen. So to worry about death is as stupid as wasting your life worrying about yesterday or tomorrow. It's the same thing. You're only alive if you're here right now, appreciating what this realm is. That's it. Otherwise, you are dead. So what do you care about dying? It's going to be the same as you are now. if you don't know how to be here now. And like you said, when you finally surrendered to all the worry, you were present, right? You're like, I think that movie Kung Fu Panda, they said that's why they call it the present, because it's a gift.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting you talk about choice, and I do believe life and death are the two things we don't choose. Now, maybe the kind of life, but the timing of it. For example, nobody knows when a baby's going to be born. I remember one of my clients was losing their mother recently, and she was saying something. Oh yeah, my mom's just eating right now, and I'm like, she's not going to die. And then she died the next morning, and it's like, well, I don't know. Why do I even say that, right? And
That's quite that happened to a lot of people I know. Like my best mate, the other space buster, their dad was dying. They all got called in from around the country to go see him. And the night before, he sat up from like a coma, and he was fine and talking to them all. So they didn't say goodbye. They all went off to the cafeteria and just, oh, we'll go home. He seems fine. And then he passed over that night. And it was like, you hear this a lot. They don't want to say goodbye to you because it's an attachment to this realm. So they all of a sudden have this thing, and then they're like, okay, I'm fine. And everyone leaves. And then they die when they're like, fine. They don't want to do it in front of you. It's a really repeated story quite often.
I have it with both my parents. I feel like they went out of their way to make sure I wasn't in the room when they died. Yeah.
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 Because I think it's hard if you're going to leave a realm that you're attached to physically and mentally and spiritually, then yeah, you don't want it. It's hard to leave, if you're attached to it. So you want to get rid of all the things you're attached to as much as you can. I look at a lot of near-death experiences, and this is like so common. This theme just repeats over and over again. Yeah.
And people really suffer that when they have the illusion that they have control over life or death, birth or death, then they suffer it. That and again, a colleague had lost somebody in their life, and they were beating themselves up. I should have done this, and I should have done that, and really suffering, because the loss itself is suffering. But then when you got that add-on, like I could have this and I could have that, as if you're in control, and that's the big thing, right? Like we've been through this medical tyranny where they're like, I'm keeping you alive, I'm keeping you safe.
Yeah.
Like, no, you're not actually. In reality, let's talk reality.
Yeah, exactly. And what is alive really? And the only one keeping you alive is you and your spirit and your mind, or what you call your ego, or your personality, whatever you want to call that. You're alive for you. No one's keeping you alive or not. And they can put you on respirators and pump you full of whatever. If you want to go, you're going to go. Like that, just like when they say, well, you've got 2 months to live, and then all of a sudden 9 years later, you're like, well, I'm still alive. So who's keeping who alive? You
Yeah.
tried to kill me 9 years ago, and I'm still going, bastard. So who's in charge here? And it's not them, but
Yeah.
it's very important that you understand placebo and nocebo. Like, do not listen to these doctors when they tell you this stuff. Like, don't listen to them, they're because you can get false beliefs that will take your spirit out of this physical realm if you believe them.
And it's very powerful. You almost can't not believe them, because the moment you step in there, you make that appointment, you are actually handing over some of your power. And it doesn't mean that it's insurmountable, but I noticed that every time I would call my doctor for a problem, then I would lose my power and I would end up more or less doing what they said, or I would do it under great duress. And then they would fight me, and there would be all that tension of that and lost energy that could have gone into healing. So I just finally fired my doctors, and I said, okay, I'm just going to take this in my hands. I have God as my witness for that, and I've noticed how when I work, God works with me. And what's, what, let's back up. I'd like to I just like to see, like, how did you come to all of this work? How long have you been doing, maybe it's the Space Busters or the work in the esoteric? How did you get inspired to do all of that?
I don't know. I used to be quite an agitated, angry Virgo. I used to be a regular normie, and 2005, 6, 7, I just had one of these awakenings, and I started going down all the rabbit holes and all that. And I started running into some people who were in the Merovingian. I ran into some occult people very early on, and they were speaking in numerology and code and syncretism, and as a Virgo, I like things explained very clearly. That's why my channel's popular. I take occulted information and explain it to a dummy. It's not that difficult. But back then I was saying, just tell me what the hell you're talking about without all this code. And they're like, we can't tell you because you have a golf ball sized consciousness and you need an ocean sized consciousness to understand this. So until you get how everything relates to each other, we can tell you all we want. You won't understand it. And as a Virgo, I was like, I'm going to dedicate my life to understand, to prove you wrong. I'm going to learn what you're talking about and show other people that it's you who can't explain it, not me who can't understand it. So I kind of got into it that way. That's really what got me into it. But as you get into it, I just started getting fascinated by near-death experiences and the mental, astral, lower astral, etheric, physical, like the idea of different planes and the idea of spirit or soul or consciousness condensing into physical matter, like as we all do. Why are we here? What is here? What's the point? And luckily I ran into esoteric information, which I'm not saying is right or wrong, because even in those fields, every other person you talk to is different. No near-death experiences. Every person you talk to has a kind of but different experience, like something, and sometimes you don't want to believe them because they have religious affiliations. You don't know who to trust, who not to, who's full of BS. But for me, it's like, again, I do it more out of curiosity, because you're going to get there anyway, no matter what. If you die and there is a sensation of you and a life review and your soul move, like it's going to happen either way. So to me, it's not paramount. Again, it's just more worrying about what isn't right now. It's just worrying about the future, and you're missing out on now. But it is fascinating, though. I love talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. And then speaking of, the different way that people die, some in a lot more peace than others, and with a lot less regret than others. And I think if you've never in your life asked a question about what you're going to regret on your deathbed, you're somewhat damning yourself to wait until that very compromised time to find some answers and resolve and heal those regrets. And that's in some ways why I feel like my early brush with death was such a gift, because then I could live almost every other day of my life asking, what am I going to regret on my deathbed? And I know exactly what I'm going to regret. It's what I regret right now.
Yeah, well, it seems a lot of people who have near-death experiences, they either get what they call a life review, or they get shown what their actions, good and bad, have done through the lens of the other people they've been interacting with. And it seems like, I don't know for sure, but a lot of the ones who say it, it seems like they were being selfish. And it's okay to be selfish. I don't mean there's anything wrong with serving the self, but it seems like they were ignorant of how their actions were harming others, when their self-action was stepping on others to get what they want. It seems like when they get given a second chance or whatever to come back, it was to show them, you're not supposed to die yet, because you were maybe supposed to be here to figure this out. And for some reason, you didn't get it, dum-dum. So we're giving you the chance to go back, or you can get maybe born again and do it, do this all over again. It seems like that is a common theme. So it does seem like you're supposed to figure this out while you're here. But, as you know, our society is set up by people who give us religions and other ideologies that don't let you even fall into this. It's amazing this information is even out there at all, because you never run across it. Does that make sense?
It does, yes. And this morning I got an email about this stream that I'd sent out yesterday, and it was somebody warning me, like, "Oh, you're in satanic territory over there, talking about reincarnation, and all you need is Jesus." And I was starting to go down that path myself. The pandemic sent me back to the Bible, and I spent a few years trying to make sense of it, and it just doesn't. So that doesn't mean I don't love Jesus. I do love Jesus, but I don't have any sense that we're talking about something satanic here, because here come the sirens to add some color to this. Because to me, it's all about motive, right?
Yeah.
What you're talking about, what you're studying, what you're practicing. It's like, why are you practicing? And
Yeah.
that was the big gift for me while I was dying, to see that, oh yeah, I'm doing all of these fantastic things for myself, but I'm doing it because I'm afraid to die, not because I love life.
That is exactly it. It's the fear of death that's controlling everyone. Why don't you revolt against the powers that shouldn't be? Well, you're afraid they're going to kill you or lock you up. You're afraid of death, or you're afraid to live because you're afraid of death. Once that shackle's gone, and no matter which principle you subscribe to, there are beliefs that you are immortal, your soul or your spirit is being perfected, and you can either go up to the mind of God, or you can shut your eyes and open it up, and you'll be in the next incarnation and won't know where you were before. Just like all of us, we just woke up as babies and have no clue what happened. Some people say, "Well, I had a past life regression," and I say, "Well, I might have been Joan of Arc too." There's no saying you're the only Joan of Arc. We might all be Joan of Arc. When you get into higher realms of consciousness, there is no past, present, and future. All possibilities are coming from the one oversoul mind of God. Therefore, you're all that. So, but again, what it's really about is liberating yourself from the fear of what comes next, because no matter what you do, what comes next is coming next, whether you like it or not. So to be afraid of what you're naturally a part of is ridiculous. It's insanity.
Exactly. And it ends up being literally crippling people. I was just hearing Ian Smith, shout out to him, on Alpha Vedic, which you were on as well. Great, fantastic interview.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got into I have different beliefs about Jesus and things like that. And I'm not here to religiously kick off with anyone. So, but yeah.
Yeah, no worries at all. There's
All right.
nothing off the table here, but I was just you're talking about liberating yourself from the fear of what's coming next. That fear of the unknown is registered as death. You're walking off the plank. This is the unconscious. Nobody would say that consciously, but that's what's happening. You literally don't see. You can't anticipate. You can't predict. You don't know if it's going to go okay or not, but if you get used to doing that thing anyway, going into the unknown, risking growth, risking learning, risking failing
Yeah.
in that unknown, then it makes you stronger over time. So, and just what I brought up Ian is because he was talking about how, as a business owner, he was the only one speaking out, and then all of a sudden he was noticing, like, oh, there are people speaking out, but they're all women, and what's up with that? Where are all the men? And right,
Good
and
question.
that's not a criticism. It's just it was. I also noted that the majority of our groups, it was all women and mamas. You know, mamas
Mhm.
have, they're like, oh, you're coming for my kids, then you're going to see the bear over here. But yeah, just, you know, being that person that risks speaking out and speaking your truth and going into the unknown, and doing that over and over again, you become quite a role model for others.
Well, we are actually coming into Aquarius right now, which is a feminine age. So that's, here's what the elites do. This is off topic, but they know how these energies work. So they know we just came out of a very masculine rule, law dominated. Male is law and rule and all this. They know that. They know we're coming into this. So that's why they're pushing transgender and feminism and trying to emasculate the men, because they knew this cycle was coming anyway. This is already the natural energy coming. So that's when you're saying, well, where are all the men? We just had 2,000 years to do our thing. Now it's time where the women are stepping up. And the Rockefellers like, yeah, we gave them the right to vote so we could tax them and work. And, they're like, we created feminism. And you're like, no, you didn't. The creation made you create feminism. You think you did it for this, but you did it because it was coming anyway. So the women are sick of our shit. They are going to step up, and they are stepping up. And the men are becoming more emasculated. And people are like, where are the men? And you're like, well, we're still here, but it's just that we're not like the hard asses we used to be, because that age is going.
Interesting.
Right.
So, yeah.
Like that's where we went. We had 2,000 years and we fucked it up. So
Right. Fascinating. Yeah, because I consider myself a recovering feminist.
yeah,
I literally no longer feel like men are responsible for all the ills in the world, and I really did believe that. That was, I thought I invented that movement, and
yeah.
so I saw how much I was psyoped and how much it really, ripped me off in my life, because we're all masculine, feminine, and that was the thing. When my dad died, I noticed how the war really was in me, not out there with me and men. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, but that's interesting that it was coming anyway. And do you think the controllers just saw that coming, and then did everything possible to make it skewed? And
This is what they do. They just push you over the cliff. They know where it's going. This is why they're all astrologers. People are like, how come they're satanic? You're like, they're not satanic. They study astrology, and the reason they do it and do all the rituals on these dates and energies is because they know what the energies are. So they say, how can we take advantage of that? So they push it to their advantage. It's coming anyway, it's just not as extreme. They're making it more extreme than it would be. It would be more subtle, but they're like, well, this is coming anyway. What do they say? Never let a good crisis go to waste. Like they have that kind of mentality. So yeah,
yeah,
they push it. They think, oh, we invented the feminist movement. You're like, no, you didn't. Nature has been like, get out of here. And then we can get into that. Like, there are the ideas that the spirit and the soul, as we can talk about what is the soul, because everyone you ask has a different belief in what that is. It's sexless. It's not male or female. So if you believe you have a soul, and you believe in reincarnation, or even don't, but believe you have a soul, it's sexless. So for you as a woman right now to be against men is ridiculous, because your soul's sexless. So you're half against yourself. And as you said, maybe you figured out that's the conflict you're having, is you hate half yourself.
exactly. That was exactly it. Oh wow, joke's on me.
He jokes on you because
Yeah.
half of you is man too. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's it.
Mhm.
That's it. It's interesting also that you bring up the sexless part. I was just listening to Matt Presti interview, and unfortunately, I don't remember his name. Might have been Dan something, and he wrote a rather large book on Genesis. And have you seen this? How he deconstructed? He went back to the Hebrew, not the translation of the translation of the translation, but he actually wanted to know, exactly what it was saying. And that part in the Bible where God talks like he's a plural. There's a whole bunch of us over here, and knowing the word Elohim is a plural word.
Yeah.
And so he interprets that plurality to actually be the children of God, the angels that are sexless, and that in fact they made us in their image. So it kind of is corroborating with what you're saying right now.
Well, yeah, I look at it more like the Elohim are the 7 planets in astrology that vest us all of our basically our virtues and sins to get over, and they are plural too as well. And the church took the word angels, which are the light angels from these 7 heavenly bodies, the sun, moon, and 5, and changed it to angels as if they're beings instead of these electromagnetic portals or energy portals. So there are several different ways to look at this. And again, you always look at it through your filter. There's the religious filter. Oh, don't astrology, the Bible. And you're like, it says, can you unchain the hands of Mazzaroth, which is the zodiac? Like the whole Bible is ancient Irish astrology from start to finish. But the church is like, don't look at that because, they have their agendas and things. And it's okay if you don't. Like you say, we're all on the hero's journey. So if you want to take the Bible literally, you can. And if you don't, you're on a different path that, it's not saying one's right or wrong. It's saying there are multiple ways to look at it. And yeah, to me, the Elohim are the planets, and astrology is the science that backs that up for me. But, and I am Roman Catholic raised, but I'm not a Bible believer anymore. I am. I just read the Bible differently than maybe I used to.
Yeah, I haven't done the deep dive into the astrology in the Bible, but the little bit that I've seen, there seems to be immense consistency that when you read the Bible that way, it does end up making a lot more sense. And there's, when you're talking about the cosmology and the description of, rather than this, especially the Old Testament God that is more of that.
Yeah. I think like in Genesis, God makes the sun on the 4th day. Well, a day is supposed to be the earth rotating around the sun. That's how you know day and night. So if there's no sun, how can there be 3 days? If there is no sun till the 4th day, clearly you're looking at a metaphor here. I mean, come on. It doesn't even make sense right from the 3rd paragraph. You're like, come on, man. But people like to pick and choose. They like to nitpick. All the water's above, and you're like, are you sure it's even talking about the earth? It could be talking about an embryo from start to finish, the formation of a cell or a double split or an embryo or anything. Are you sure this is even talking about the earth and not the earth that the esoteric people call the body and the spirit and mind? There's so many ways to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we all get into fights. Like, you don't understand what you're reading. You're like, well, the book's so genius. You can understand it any way you like. Like I said earlier, if you read the Bible with a golf ball size consciousness, you're going to take away a golf ball size understanding of it. And if you come back to it later with an ocean size consciousness of study into all the scientific fields and syncretism, you're going to go, oh, that makes sense finally. Because most of it don't make sense if you take it literally.
Yes, exactly. And then back to angles and angels. And I had a small revelation, but it was a big revelation I'll never forget. I was trying to see the sun off my balcony here, and I've got a roof where at certain times of the year you lose that sun, and it's just gone. It's like it's gone. But my mind's going, no, I know it's out there. It's just not on me, and it's not pleasing me at this time. So then my body started going out the door, and I went and I found the sun next door, and I put myself in there, and I realized, like, this is to me angelic, that I simply shifted my angle, and the sun could see me, And then I had a much more pleasing experience, which we might associate with angels. I know there's dark ones too, but just that simple thing of perspective. And like you're saying, if you want to go and read the Bible in that literal way, and that's your free will, then that's the perspective that you're going to hold. That's the angels that you're going to call in, if you want to talk about it that way.
Yeah.
But if you want to broaden out and expand, then you can have that too.
There are definitely, some call it the jinn, or, demons or angels, whatever you want to call it. There are entities outside of our perceivable electromagnetic spectrum that you could call angels and demons and guardian. I'm convinced there are things outside of what we see, feel, and experience that are there, but to call them angels is not. They're twisting the word. Angels is angles from the planets. It's talking about energy beams. Now, it seems there are guardians who are with us that we don't know, and we've all felt it and experienced it, whether you call it a whisper in your head, or I can't remember his name, but there's the psychiatrist who was working with schizophrenics, and finally he addressed that they're actually hearing voices like from outside, not inside their head. And when he started addressing these entities as if they were real, really weird things started happening, supernatural, and these schizophrenics, they're not making this up in their head. They are being invaded by what the Arabs would call the jinn, or we might call demons. So I'm not saying there aren't demons and angels. I'm saying what the Bible is calling angels is something else in other teachings. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Got it. And since we're on the subject, what's your take on entities or demons, or for lack of a better way to say it? Maybe we have to start with good and evil.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is why I like the near-death experiences. My friend Felix, she went to a seance with her friend whose boyfriend died. They're sitting around the room, and this experience affected her so much that she looks into this stuff constantly. We're always sending each other stuff. There were weird lights and flashes in the room, noises. There's an audio tape. The boyfriend came to her and spoke to her. And they got an audio recording of it. Now, not everyone in the room heard it, but Felix was sitting right next to her and heard the dude's voice. He told her he loved her, gave her a kiss, like she felt it. Whatever this is, it's in the room. Now, there are people out there who say when you die from the physical, your spirit, or some will call it soul. There's a difference. We can get into that later.
Yes.
Goes into the first layer of etheric, and can hang around for 4 to 6 weeks, usually wanting to see who came to your funeral and say goodbye and this, that, and the other. And then if it hangs around too long, and eventually that should fade, and they're ready to cross up to the lower astral, middle astral, higher astral, mental. But some of them hang around. That's what you'd call ghosts. Like even though they lose connection, they still hang around. That's one belief and idea, and I'm up for it because there are so many seance and ghost stories and people who have these experiences that I'm like, what's going on here? I don't know. I've never died. I've never had a near-death experience. I've never been to a seance, but I've seen enough of these damn stories to know something else is going on. And I'm trying. That's why I'm into this. Is like, what is going on? Who's talking to them? Something's happening. Now, there are other Eastern philosophies that say when you die, that's that. You are everything, and everything is you. A blade of grass, a tree, a dog, whatever. Just like when you were born, you didn't know where you came from. They're saying when you die, you shut your eyes, and the next thing that is alive or born is having the I'm it experience, just like you are. It's an illusion almost, like the Brahma, they call it. Like there's the one oversoul, and the only thing the one can't experience is not the one. You need time and space to, there's no time and space or experience in the one. So the only thing the one could be lonely for is, what is it like to not be the one? And then you would need time and space and birth as a trillion gazillion things, right, to experience that. that's another Eastern philosophy too. And I'm not saying either one is right or wrong, but that takes away the feeling. All of it's having the I'm it, like a spider or a dog or you or a blade of grass. As far as they're concerned, I'm it, but there's an idea that you feel like you're it because the one doesn't want to, it already knows what it's like to not be you. The whole point of the one splintering into the everything is to feel what it's like to not be the one. And so it has to be an illusion. You don't want to play this game, right? If you know the game, if the one's trying to fool itself to experience the many, the last thing it wants to do is, oh, I know I'm the one though. So then it doesn't get the experience, you
Right.
know?
Right.
So it's like the one is at play here. And that's why people are like, it's horrible. If there was a God, it wouldn't let babies burn in fires and this and that. And you're like, yeah, because if it's the whole thing's a joke, there are no babies to burn in fires up in the one. It's like, of course it would have all of it, because if it all goes back to the one, then it's not really real. It's real here. It feels real, but it's not, So that's one idea. And a lot of people don't like that idea, especially people who have near-death experiences, because they're like, no, I went into the next thing and there was a light, the white magnetic light, and I was greeted by this, or I was sitting by a stream, or something happened. And what no one ever asked them is like, they say, I wasn't me. They say, I rose out of my body and I was looking down and I felt free for once. And I was one with everything, but I could still see me down there. And they never asked them, were you male or female? Nobody ever asked this question. While you were up there, do you remember being male or female, what you were? Because the question is, are there layers? Were you gone long enough? Does something happen if that does happen, right? If you had a near-death experience, well, you're back. So you couldn't have been dead that long, or else you wouldn't be, your body would have decayed. You know what I mean? So you're like, you clearly came back within either 1 to 20 hours or whatever. So you weren't gone that long. But, is it possible that when you're gone that long, something else happens and something else, do you start going into different realms or dimensions or layers? And that's what I don't know. That's what I'm asking what's the difference between a near-death experience and a long death experience?
Right.
Let's say a year, right? There might be a difference between an hour and a year.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Or is there?
Right. And just to go back to something you were saying about the illusion of it all, and that's in some ways where doesn't mean the philosophy is wrong or that that's a wrong thought, but a lot of people have used it for the wrong reason, and that's to dissociate from suffering. Because even though it's an illusion that the baby's burning, then if you can't feel that, then you're not alive. If that doesn't cause suffering in you and make you want to remedy the suffering in some way, because that's where people have taken it. They've let it put them in apathy, so they don't care about anything, right?
Yeah.
And they're literally cooperating with that force of death in the process. So I just always feel like I need.
Well, that's pretty interesting, because the other thing the one can't feel is pain. Because if there's no time and space and physical experience in the one, it can't know pain either. But it needs pain to know non-pain, and love to know hate. And, so there's that. Now you start getting into hermeticism with duality. That's the idea that in this realm, all is duality. There's no hot and cold. There's just temperature, so you don't see one as evil and one as good.
Yeah, this I do not buy. I just don't buy it.
Right. It's really hard to buy. It's like hard to buy. Like, we think good and evil, right? We think there has to be good and evil. But how can you have good without evil to know what good is? You see,
and just back to the one can't feel pain. The pain came from the one, so I disagree that there's that. I think God personally is extremely sensitive, not to his own pain, but to all the pain. That that it's not a look on, oh, you'll be fine, or you'll be dead, or you'll be, it's just one life and you got 100 more to come, or 1,000 more, or 100,000, whatever it is. I really, that's not my personal experience. Also, that good and evil are a package deal. You couldn't have good without evil. I totally went down this rabbit hole so big. And while I don't, have any religious hat to hang this on whatsoever, my experience is that we have a pure source
Yeah.
where we come from, right? That doesn't have, and you take purity and you turn it upside down and you invert it and you mangle it, and then you get some expression that's not our true nature, but yet it was made of nature. So anyway, it can go in circles from there, can't it?
Well, you and I talked about that at the pool in Acapulco. Like, Bill Gates came from nature.
Right.
George Soros, the Jesuits, whoever you want to pin all this on. Like I said to you, am I Bill Gates? Because he came from the same nature I did. He might be acting evil as far as society is concerned for morals versus ethics, or even ethics and morals. But nature made that guy. Nature, if nature didn't want Bill Gates behaving like that, it would have made it so he can't. But now we're getting into free will, and you're also getting into the idea of God. There's a lot of people who look and say, my dad used to say this to me, look at this, son. It's no accident. This is so intelligent. This whole thing, there has to be a creator. That's a Western idea. The Eastern idea is that the creation itself, magnetism, is intelligent. The creation, you say, well, okay, Dad, how are you breathing? I know you can control your breathing. How do you blink? Tell me biochemically and physically all the synapses that go out. Tell me how you blink. I don't know. Tell me everything when you move your hand like this to catch a ball. Tell me how you do it. I don't know. You don't even have a manual. It does it. That's another Eastern philosophy. There is isness. The creation itself is the mind of God fractured into in between God or external of God, having a giant play in isness. And there are horrible things in the play because it's trying to experience everything it can experience. And this is really hard for us as Westerners to wrap our head around. And again, that's why I put a disclaimer earlier. I'm not saying I believe the West or the Eastern version or whatever. I'm saying I've been studying both of them for a long time. And I understand where they're each coming from. And we wouldn't still be talking about this if they had figured this out.
Exactly. No, and the discussion does at some point go in circles, right? Like that there's you always bump up against the grand mystery and can't say anything. This was actually one of my revelations in preparing for an Acapulco with one of my talks, the archetypes of controlled op, because it's one thing to just go and spew a bunch of archetype patterns and even a bunch of names and stuff, but that's not, to me, the point. That's people are doing that, but how could I ask myself, how could I go deeper and actually benefit people, not just so they know who the scary ones are, but because at the end of the day, you have two big qualities going on. One is certainty and one is uncertainty.
Yeah.
And we're back to what we, I think, started talking about, was the masculine feminine. It's inside of all of us. And the masculine says, I know. And the feminine says, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think what I like about your hero's journey, I think the hero's journey is great because that's what they call the sun's path through the, every day and every month and every year, starting with Aries, or which would be our head, because you can take the whole zodiac and start from head and going down. They're calling it the hero's path. That, again, like you're saying, you get the choice here, which is great. This gets down to free will. Do you want to be what we call bad? And you do know what you would consider right and wrong. You do know that, or at least most of us think so. But then again, you could ask a psychopath like Bill Gates. He might really believe there's too many people in the world and that the world's going to die if we don't kill off 90, for all we know. It's like Alan Watts, the philosopher, used to say, the lettuce farmer doesn't like slugs because the lettuce farmer plants his lettuce 2 feet apart and sells them for money. So when slugs start eating his lettuce, he wants to kill them because they're no good. But in nature, lettuce grow in patches. And the slugs eat the outside lettuce so they don't all starve each other to death for water. So you're looking at a matter of perspective. For him, a slug sucks. For nature, slugs are essential to lettuce to keep surviving, you know? So again, we get into this, how zoomed out are you in your consciousness? Are we so zoomed in to our beliefs and I'm right and that's wrong and I know good from evil and all that? And that's where you get into different Hermetic and Gnostic beliefs that, like, if you zoomed out, is there good and evil? And it's
Mhm.
impossible to see their perspective if you're staying zoomed in. You can't even comprehend it. I like to entertain both ideas myself.
Right.
I
Exactly.
don't behave badly because I don't want to. I don't think it's cool to other people. And there are people who say they come back from their near death experiences and had a life review. Like they were shown everything they did, good and bad, and not and they felt what it felt like, but they were also shown when you said this to her, she turned around and did this at, at the grocery store. Like, they see a spider's web, they describe it, where they see their every thought and action shot out into a web of the all. This gets described a lot, so I don't know if that happens or not, because not everyone who has a near death experience comes back with that thing, but a lot do.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wake-up calls, life is full of them, and it might not be an outright threat to your life, like you get hit by a bus or a threatening illness, but you get some kind of board in the face that interrupts the patterns. And if the patterns have been more unconscious and resulting in pain in yourself and pain in the others, and like you're saying, the ripple effect, then there's no getting out of that pain. That pain is stored in your system as nothing more than held energy. But if you don't have the strength and the bravery to go and feel that pain, to me, it's the bravest thing ever to feel that pain, then life is going to present some kind of circumstance where you have to feel that pain, where you can't get out of that pain. Right. And so there's something I talk about, like harvesting energy that is stuck in the unconscious, and energy, in my experience, wills to move and to do everything that supports life. That's what its true nature is. But in our disnatured world, in our disnatured lives, then we're seeing all kinds of other results.
Well, yeah, there are also, there's a debate. A lot of people like, you need to get rid of your mind and ego, and then you will transcend and you can get out of here. You can go out of Earth and go up to these other astral realms or other dimensions, and it's going to be all great and dandy, And then there are other beliefs like, no, this is where you're going to keep coming back and back. Now, you could reincarnate into an animal nature if your soul uh, is being the lower. There's in this philosophy, there are two layers of soul. There's the perishable lower one and the imperishable spiritual one. If you keep acting like a douchebag down here in an animal, you will come back as an animal. We stand upright, and the birds are very smart because our spine is erect. We are an antenna taking energy. The other animals are on all fours sideways. They don't have a chance to right themselves and say right and wrong. They are stuck in the lower chakras because they don't have a dipole to bring the energy up from the bottom. This is your hero's journey of your Aries, the sword, your spinal column, right? You got the fire on top and you got the fire down in the Scorpio. And that's a water sign, but fire can put out water, but hot fire can boil water, and water can put out fire, right? So there's an idea that you just keep coming back here, but in lower and lower forms, and you'll never get back to this form. There are ideas that you're purifying your soul or your mind or personality through experience here so that you can go in a higher frequency and exist in another realm, outside of here. And again, I don't know which is which. I don't know. So that's why I like to really study this, because there are all these crazy ideas, and every person you talk to has a completely different one. You ask like a million people, what's the soul? And you'll get like a million different answers, or maybe none. Most people are like, I don't know. I never thought about it. And you're like, okay. So that's why I find the subject really fascinating. But yeah, like in the ancient Irish, I can tell you here quick, I was going to show it, but I'll just say There's an idea in the old Gnostic that the soul is the ego, the self, or the personality that's being built, right? And as we talked about, there's a lot of people who are meditating and trying to do Eastern philosophy, saying like, you need to get rid of the self and the ego. But like Walter Russell and Matt Presti was saying, the mind is the mind of God. It's your ego and self is God from the still white magnetic light down into here. And in the ancient teachings, mind has a dual nature. There's an upper permanent nature, like I said, a spiritual nature, and a lower perishable nature you could call your lower chakras. So again, it's getting out of your animal desires into your spiritual desires. So you have spiritual soul and animal soul, and they only exist in the astral or the lower spiritual planes. They according to them, there are higher planes that they don't exist in. The highest plane being mind. So this is when you get into alchemy, like Berlando and I have talked about before together. Everything in alchemy and alchemical theory, it comes from mind and precipitates down into physicality. But the idea is that the soul is down here, which in ego, self, and personality, gaining knowledge and wisdom in incarnations until the ego has enough of being animal-like and completes the spiritual body, where it can then go back up to the higher realms where soul doesn't exist.
Interesting.
One idea. That's an idea.
One idea, exactly. Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not challenging. Although I did my talk at an Acapulco on ascension myth busting, so
Yeah.
I have an obvious bias in that title right there.
Well, I like it. Yeah, say to people listening what you and I talked about, because you don't buy into that at all.
I think there is a lot of traps in it. Even if like what you're saying is true, by making your goal to ascend and to leave the body behind. First of all, that's how I got sick with a stage 4 lymphoma, right? I was doing ascension spirituality. I was going to India every year. I was meditating my way out of my physicality every single day. And then all of a sudden it's nearly dead. It's like,
Right.
wow, what happened? Oh
I'm
my
trying
God.
to leave my body, and sure enough,
It's leaving me. It's leaving me. So yeah, it made me do a real U-turn. Like, no, this is and getting out of the body is a bad goal. But getting into embodiment, finding spirit in the like, because when we think of spirit and matter, we're having two ideas, two concepts. And as a result, it's like they're as if two different things, but we don't know. And I started to talk about it like the spirit has a love affair with the body, that there's it, it's so they're so close. They're one, just like a marriage, right?
yeah. And I look at it like a marinade. When you marinate vegetables or meat, whatever your thing is, meat or vegetables, when you marinate it, it's interlaced with the vegetables or the meat. It's that they're together. They're not separate. And I've got a video of, where they're using a Kirlian energy motion picture photography to see what you call auras. I could probably screen share it and show people.
Please do.
Would you like to see it? The other thing is, I just want to tell people that I won't get into like the Irish versus the Greek. The Catholic Church moved all this to Greek, but the word soul comes from the word Ioannis, Iohnnes, or John the Baptist. And it means fluids of the body, not the ego or spiritual man. It means fluids. So when the body dies, the fluids die, and the man loses his soul when he loses his body, because they're physical.
Right.
So there's another teaching where soul is not between spirit and physical at all. It's physical. Like you're saying, it's interlaced with the meat, you know what I mean?
Right.
So like you said, yeah, if you're trying to transcend your soul and your mind and ego, well, your mind and ego are also what's dictating what your body wants to do. That's what they tell you. Get into Aries, the cerebrum, the lamb or ram of God, and that's Moses. He blows the ram's horn, the Lamb of God, the ram, and says, quit worshiping the golden calf, which is Taurus, the cerebellum, which is the motor skills. He's saying, quit doing, because you're horny and you're hungry and you like to smoke, and your lower brain's just doing whatever you want like a dog. Stop it. Get into your upper mind and transcend that. Quit worshiping the golden calf. Well, that's your mind. And that's coming from, like Matt Presti would say, the mind of God. You're trying to transcend into a spiritual kind of being. Let me show this real quick. I think I can do this. We practice this.
Yeah.
All right. Present. Here we go.
Everything.
Present. Share screen. So far, I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Entire screen. Click that. All right. Here we go. And then I don't think this will be huge, but where is it? Human aura footage. Here we go. Click that, and I'll try to make this as big as I can. Can you see that?
Yes, actually, perfect.
Cool. You'll hear some sound and probably not that well. I can put my mic down by the screen.
The following film shows the human energy field radiating outward from the body. It dynamically changes based on the physical conditions, the feeling states, the motivations of the person, in interaction with energy radiation from objects and living things. The existence of the human energy field, or the aura, was validated and studied by over 12 years of high-frequency recordings. This film shows the field not ordinarily seen, but now visible. Like all living things, this little dog has a sizable radiant field, even when he sits quietly. Notice now, as he greets his master, the obvious love and affection between them increases the dynamic radiation from their bodies, even the dog's tail and the man's head. No wonder so many people have pets who give them pleasure and provide a vital field of energy to interact with. Wherever there is motion in the universe, there is increased flow in the field that humans interact with. See the explosive activity from the waves and from his body. Also, the electromagnetic field of the body is negatively charged or ionized, as are waves or tumbling water, which further expands and heightens his field, giving a physical exuberance and emotional excitement. No wonder that a day at the beach is so exhilarating and vitalizing. We all love a babbling brook and the freshness of outdoor vegetation in mountains. Most of us believe that it is relaxation and beauty which refreshes us. From our research, we have discovered that living plants in rarefied atmosphere provide a richer field of negative ions, which heightens and replenishes our own energy field. Notice that the man's field becomes light in color and high in frequency. It sparkles and radiates some distance from his body. See that as the child moves into the mother's field, the affection between them changes the overall field to a pink color. Individuals' fields blend and enhance when there is a warm, caring relationship. These energy fields are the largest and the whitest that we have shown. She is Omi. On the breath inhalation, the radiant field diminishes, and on exhalation, it expands and envelops the child. We have known for a long time that Gregorian chants, oming, humming, singing, and whistling create an energy which perks up emotions and brings an expanded consciousness.
Yeah. Are you still there?
Yes, I am. I was muted. Yeah, very sweet.
Yeah.
Very nice.
You can stop screen. Yeah, here we go. So again, whether you want to call that soul or spirit or what that auric field, that is interlaced with the physical. It's the waves and the plants that are, in the other child. You see what I'm saying? It's to me, I'm with you. It's all entwined. So why would you want to transcend that? What's the point of being here is what I'm saying.
Right.
Is that how you feel too? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that was my U-turn exactly. That this is very important. That this isn't just a meat suit that we slough off and go on to a more real kind of a life. That this is the real deal, and we don't know what's beyond it for, I think, a good reason, so that we do, full on play the game if there's a game to play.
Yeah. Well, that is the thing, with a lot of Hermeticism, there's different Gnostic sects too as well, but Some of these teachings, it's a meat suit. And you're like, no, it's just a meat suit. Don't worry, you can get another meat suit and another meat suit. And it's like, yeah, okay, but there's other teachings where it's not a meat suit. It's a meat suit interlaced with spirit and soul, if you want to call it that. So the meat suit is important, because if the point of the meat suit is to learn experiences through your deeds and your thoughts, to teach a higher spirit body, to evolve a spirit body. That's one teaching, is the point of the meat suit is to have these interactions, and they are affecting that radiant field she's showing to make a higher spirit, to go into a realm where they don't want dickheads and murderers and Charles Manson and liars and thieves and cheats. You're like, what makes you think you're going to be down here as Ted Bundy, the serial killer, and they're going to want you up in another realm if that's really what's going on, or even back here as another human. So of course it has to be intertwined, I think. But again, these are, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. These are beliefs.
Right, exactly. And in the realm of beliefs, and we're always in a temporal realm, a temporary realm, because that's growing up in a big family. I would see how people's beliefs would change every single time we got together. There'd have some new belief, and they would, put their fist on the table, and they'd argue for their belief, and I'd be going like, but you did that exactly with some other belief last time that's not there anymore. And so I just really saw how fluid that environment is. And and then you got Crow 777 there, like, belief is the enemy of knowing.
Yeah.
Right. What's your take on that?
Yeah, because what if you're wrong? What if what you believe isn't true?
Right.
I used to believe a lot of things that aren't true anymore. Even like you said, you watch my Atlantis Rising series, half the shit in there I don't believe anymore, because I came across new information. So if I'm stuck believing that, you're going to end up doing what everyone's doing and fight to the death, like religions. I've had, arguments. I'm not ragging on Christianity or whatever. I have different beliefs, but I have a great friend. We're still great friends, but we have like heated discussions about that. She's like, Jesus is God incarnated, and all you have to do is say, I believe, I accept you, and then I'll go to heaven. And you're like, well, why didn't Ted Bundy or John Wayne Gacy just say that first, then go kill 50 kids and rape them? And they're still going to heaven because they already accepted him. You're like, dude, I have trouble buying that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, but what you can do, where we agree at, is no matter what a dickhead you've been at any time, you can just say, I will no longer do this.
Exactly.
That is redemption. You don't have to suffer and punish yourself, for what you did before. Just stop and do something different.
Yeah. And in fact, the suffering and the self-beating is a way out of the healing, because it's easier to beat yourself than it is to feel the pain that's trapped in your body.
Yeah. What do they call it? Is that called immolation? What do you call it? What's that called?
Self-flagellation, I guess, is one. Self-flagellation.
Immolate. Yeah, right. Yeah. Immolation, set yourself on fire, I think.
Okay. That's
a little extreme. That's too much. But yeah, I'm with you. That would be the point in either philosophy of learning here is, okay, you've done some terrible things. Just stop.
Just stop. Exactly. But I never had the word repent in my vocabulary until the last 4 years. But now I completely get it. It's like, yeah, as soon as you realize, then stop it. But here's the thing, and that's where a lot of my work comes in, is that people will hear that, just stop. Oh, sure. Like, I'd love to stop the madness. I'd love to stop doing the wrong things. But here I go again, doing it again. And there's a pattern established, and it's motivated by the unconscious that's giving instructions that you can't not listen to, because they're telling you, especially when it comes to life and death, they're telling you you will die otherwise. And if you never make the inquiry to study the program and see like, oh, it's lying. It's lying. It's telling me things that aren't actually in reality true. And like you keep pointing to Aries, we have this higher mind that can see through. If you engage it and you use it, then you can look at a program and say, actually, I'm not going to take instructions from that AI anymore. This is my life. I'm the decider.
Well, that is actually what both Hermetic and Gnostic ancients are talking about. They're talking about transcending the lower need for all the physical and the selfishness so you can become like that and say, no, I don't have to do this. It's a choice. I might even suffer. Like a lot of people who are, in the truth movement over the boogeyman were on YouTube, I think.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people who just said, no, I'm not going to put that on my face and put, that in me. And they lost their jobs and they lost their friends and family. And, and they said, yeah, I lost everything, but I'm still not going to do it because I'm going to be in the higher mind, So that is exactly what it's about. And it's not making you any better. Like, that's what I like about, I haven't read your book and I'm going to, but like you're saying, we're all on the hero's journey, but you're not just the hero or the alchemist or whatever. You're a bit of all of it at different times. And that's astrology as well. Paracelsus, he said, know that the philosopher has power over the stars and not the stars over him or her. Yeah. And I say astrologer, because I know I'm a Virgo. I know that I have positive aspects and negative aspects, and I made a list of them, and I know which ones I've overcome of my negative ones. I haven't overcome any of the positive ones, and the joke is they're there to help you overcome the negative ones. Your same signs positives are there to help you have the tools to overcome the negative, which could be likened to the hero's journey.
It's exactly how I look at it. It's exactly how I look at it. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So you did my quiz before.
I did. Yeah.
Today, and you got the rebel archetype, which I
got the rebel. I thought I was an alchemist.
Right. And just to reflect.
Tell me about the rebel. Yeah. Tell me about me.
Yeah. And to preempt that, just to say that we are all archetypes on the hero's journey. And the reason that at the same time, not even that we just pass through and we're, little this and little that. I believe astrology is the same. Like, we always have all of the planets in, whether it's influencing us or we're influencing them, or this exchange relationship of energy going on. So, the quiz, for people who haven't done it or have done it already and want to redo it, it's still relevant because it's showing you, where are you defaulting? Where are you likely to find the most amount of lost energy, the most amount of purposeful hero's journey energy that will fuel you and will also take you down. The two in one, right? If
here and now, yeah, that's the thing. Because with the astrology, there are some who say, well, you'll incarnate as a different sign next time because maybe you learned your lesson of what a Virgo needs to learn. You need to learn the patience and blah, 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 blah. And next time you're going to need to learn this, that, and the other. What I like about yours is, like, you can learn that, but then you go into the next leg of the journey. Like, you don't seem to get off the wheel. You know what I mean? Like, there's no getting out of it. You learn it, and then it's like, right, next. That's like you never get out of school. Or do you? Do you ever finish your hero's journey, or is it?
Not in my experience. No,
it's round and round you go.
It's a spiral, not around in a circle, but in a spiral that either goes up or goes down. And then that's the trap that we think, oh, well, just keep going up, which is better than down. Right? It is better than down. We like that. But to me, the whole purpose of the journey and knowing it and knowing yourself is so you can get off the map. And this I'm now able to articulate thanks to Matt Presti, one of those talks around the pool in the morning, and how, we're chasing frequency. We're chasing that high thing because we like it so much better than the low thing. And what that does is it keeps us infinitely on the spiral. And then the point of the spiral itself is to get off the spiral, to use the spiral, to see it as our, it's like our palette. It's our control board. It's our, like, God gave us all of this, color and experience that we can create at will. And but if we're completely trapped inside of it and we never get out to the place that's no frequency, that's no, God isn't on the map. And I think that's the big mistake that's getting made. They think they're chasing God, but they're really just winding themselves up. And then the short version of my talk from Inokaboko is that as you go up, you also are going down. But if you think you're so high, you're going to suppress the crap out of the down. and pretend that that's not happening.
I mean, that is also hermeticism. That's duality right there. You can pretend it's not, but it is. Yeah.
It
But
is.
are you saying like go up to the white still mind of God, as Matt was saying, or something like? Because to me, it's like the only point of overcoming let's say your astrological negatives. It's for right here and now. It's so that you have a better time here right now in the physical, and you stop being hurting other people. Like, to me, the idea is not to get off the wheel, but to make this heaven on earth, instead of thinking, oh, if I do this, I'm going to get a ticket to heaven. To me, it's like, well, if I do this, I'm going to make heaven around me. And, I see it like that.
Right, right. And when I say get off the wheel, it's not a destination. It's like every rung of the hero's journey, the child seems like lowly compared to the king or the alchemist. That is the so-called end of the journey. But it's not like that. The child can go right to heaven at any point. The rebel can go right to heaven. The warrior can go right to heaven. The nurturer goes right to heaven. So it's, to me, I just I was praying to God one day, and I was like, why did create all the suffering? Because there's suffering inherent in every stage of the hero's journey on the whole scale of emotion, which is a similar kind of a mirrored experience. And then I just heard this Beth, that's me. That's
weird
Why
Freudians.
yes, exactly. I know. So I heard God say, Beth, they're all doors to freedom. Right. And to me, that's our inheritance. Not that we go to freedom and numb out and bliss out. That's actually more ascension. But that we have this context of freedom, that we can know and live and breathe freedom that's not separate from like, oh, now I need compassion because there's pain in me or someone else. Oh, well, that's part of my palette. Or now I need, if you're in the rebel, well, now I need the warrior. I need to start building and get serious, and what's the infrastructure and what are the goals. And so it's all ways for us to know, freedom.
Right. See, what I noticed is like when I had to think again after talking to Matt about the 7 deadly sins versus the 7 heavenly virtues, which are to overcome. I started thinking about it, and he said, oh, the still white magnetic light of God, which is still, it's between breaths. It's the space between things is God. And when you breathe in and stop, there's God. And you breathe out and stop, there it is. And I started looking at the 7 deadly sins, and most of them are doing. They're doing things, usually negative things for yourself and hurt others. Most of the 7 heavenly virtues were being. Except for sloth was the only one that's not really doing in the sins, but sloth is actually doing nothing, not enough, and charity was the opposite of that, which is the only virtue that was doing, but actually you're relieving yourself because you feel good. You raise your vibration, or you raise your spirit by giving and helping. So, and actually others don't have to do as much because you're doing for them. So you allow them a space of being. So I started looking at it like that, like what is ascension? I'm like, is it a state of more being than doing? And then you start to get into maybe these Eastern guys have it right. They're like, stop and smell the flowers. If you're doing yoga and meditating and goat yoga and all this because you think that you need to be better, but if you knew how to be better, you'd be better already. So what your problem is, you don't accept yourself 100% as you. You're trying to be something you aren't, when really the joke is you're perfect. And once you realize that, then you might do yoga because you want to. You don't have to meditate, but you'll stop swimming to get to the other side of the shore, and you'll start swimming to experience the state of swimming in the water and feel the waves and the joy of just being. Not, you can, like you might like washing the dishes because you can get into washing the dishes the best you can wash a dish. You know what I mean? So they might be onto something there as well too.
Yeah, so interesting. And then right away I think about growing. And when you look at nature, it's tasked to grow. There's no blade of grass that doesn't have that job on its hands. And I think it's the same with us, that as soon as you grow into more acceptance in your life, you're also going to see there's an even deeper place that, yes, acceptance is necessary to not degrade and put down and disapprove of all of this beautiful creation that you are. And there's a deeper place to see that from as well, by letting acceptance itself go, thinking that
Yeah.
the opposite of acceptance would be that you don't accept it, but it's not like that. By going through the door of acceptance and finding freedom on the other side, and finding the energy is not drawn in that, it's actually a well of energy in that,
Right.
right? So coming to the source of it, and then the growing, that's painful, right? People don't generally like that. A lot of people don't like to learn, they don't like to explore, they don't like to take on a new idea. I see you doing it pretty much every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a rare quality, even
But
that.
it's the, yeah, it shouldn't be painful. That's the thing. You need to step out of your comfort zone. If you enjoy that process, it's painful because you're waiting for the carrot at the end. Right? If I do this, if I just do this, I'll get this, and you never get it. Even when you do get it, it sucks. You're like, the whole joy is, it wouldn't be painful if you enjoyed doing it and change your mindset around. Do you like heaven and hell? Do you believe in actual physical or spiritual heaven and hell? Because like you're saying, oh, you did this in that lifetime and you're going to hell forever. That's it. You can't get out. You can't get out. No, it's forever. Well, there's no growth or change. So what's the point?
Right.
And the same when you get to heaven. I'm just going to sit in the clouds with Jimi Hendrix. That bore the shit out of me in about a month. I'm begging to come back here. You know what I mean? I'm like, I got to go sit with my grandma, man. I used to have to sit with her at Thanksgiving and put up with her shit for 2 hours. So that's what I think this place is, is a chance to so you're not bored. I think in the ideology that the one is trying to separate and experience the many, it's got to be bored. It has to be boring to have no growth or change or anything. And that's all that happens in this creation is change and movement constantly. It's at play. I don't see this place as being created by a creator. I see this place is the creator. That's kind of how I look at it. And I'm not saying that's correct or not. I'm saying that's my approach.
Yeah, so interesting. I love it. And going back a little bit to what you were saying about the 7 deadly sins and the 7 virtues, and how you noticed that one is more doing and the other is more being. And so that's interesting. Can you name those 7 sins and virtues for us?
Yeah, I can pull them up here too. I've got somewhere out there. I've got the 7 deadly sins. Where are they?
Because I certainly know of them, but I have not.
So yeah, hang on. I got to do the present again, right? It's present.
Exactly.
Here I go again. And entire screen. Yes. And then I click that. I'm getting good at this. 5th time is a charm. So you can see my screen now.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Kinda. Yeah, I'll blow this up. Right there.
There
see
you
it?
go. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So on the left are the sins: pride, greed, wrath, lust, envy, gluttony, which is one of my big ones I don't get over. I like my drinking and smoking, and I'm a glutton. Sloth. So sloth is really the only one that isn't doing. Like I said, that it's most of these are more about doing shit to, and when you look on the right with the virtues, prudence, justice, temperance, courage, these are states of being, faith, right? Hope. You don't have to really do anything except for charity. But again, like I said, when you do charity, you're actually relieving the labor of the doing of others so that they can be. Now, Matt and I talked about, he's saying, well, vibrations can be higher or lower, but the one white magnetic light of God has no vibrations. It's still. So when you think about which of these are exuding energy, well, all the things that pride, greed, wrath, lust, envy, gluttony make you do, they make you do stuff and expend energy, right? When you look at the right side, actually, these are things that make you abstain from expending energy because they're like temperance, courage. They're about being instead of doing. You see what I'm saying?
Interesting. Yeah. Could you keep it up for?
Sorry, yeah, I can.
That's okay. Just to discuss it a little bit more.
Yeah, shit. Sorry. How do I
That's
do
okay.
that? Here we go. Yep. Go on.
There it is. Good.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, are you familiar with David Hawkins' scale of emotion? I actually am more familiar with a very similar version by Lester Levinson. And this is part of how I have been teaching and training students and work with clients as well. And there are some clues in this. In the deadly sins, for example, sloth is going to coincide, in my opinion, with apathy, right? You're slothful when you kind of don't care, you don't feel, you might be numb, you have no motivation, you might feel helpless in that, and it makes you slothful. And it's interesting how it seems like this is not doing, but it actually requires the most energy ever to be this.
Interesting.
In that
Yeah.
mode. It is the biggest suck of energy that you can have, which is, people's depression, how that can go on for a year or 2 years or 25 years. And their life adds up to literally nothing, but they spent their whole life doing it.
Yeah, and all the pain they suffer, and probably the mental and emotional energy they expel from the, what do you call it, the consequences of not doing any of that, and no reward. Is that how you mean?
Yeah, it's very
That's interesting.
expensive.
Yeah.
It's very expensive to run apathy if you want to call it a program. I try not to refer to it that way, just so people can learn what programs are. But and when you look at say gluttony, this won't go in any kind of an order here, but that, and I would put gluttony and lust in the same category.
Mhm.
If you look at envy, that to me is actually a form of pride. That jealousy, when you have a sense of separateness from other people and you go, oh, well, I wish I had that great beard that you have. I don't have a great beard like you.
I'm glad you don't.
I'm glad I don't do, actually. So I throw that in there. And
Join the circus. Yeah, I
yeah,
see what you're saying. Yeah, but you're right. Yeah, they're actually, they're this again. They're opposites, but they're the same.
right.
That's
Yeah. And
again Hermeticism. Pride is like, I'm proud that I got this Mercedes, and the other guy's like, I want your Mercedes, so I'll walk over anybody I can get to be like you. But
right.
they both walked over somebody. That was the action,
Right. Yeah. Like most of these qualities, say the greed, the envy, the gluttony. No, that's more lust. But anyway, there's a lot of sins of pride. Pride is a very, very big one. And then the pride you're talking about when you're happy about your Mercedes, if it's really, come from a clean and loving motive, then to me, that's actually courage. That's not pride at all. And I think it's no mistake that we called that pride, and we called pride a sin, so that people didn't have the courage to just feel happy about their accomplishments, just that they should feel guilty, which is another form of pride.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well,
And
like the thing about pride is, George Carlin made a joke. He's like, a gay pride. He's or I'm proud to be Irish. He's like, you had no choice. You were born that way. Be happy to be Irish, not proud, because pride starts excluding others and separating yourself, from others, and gives you like a superiority complex. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's like, be happy. Don't be proud. Pride cometh before the fall, as they say.
And you nailed it about the separateness. And some people are very surprised to see that, yes, a sense of superiority over others creates that division of pride, but also a sense of inferiority creates that division of pride. I'll call it reverse pride or inverted pride, but it's still pride. And all of these have signature vibrations, which actually help you to be able to categorize it accurately, because to me these are hardwired installations that we can't muck with. You can't break it up. It just is what it is. And when you discover it, it's like, there it is. There's no mucking around. But what we do have the choice with is, where are we going to vibrate on that? And so a lot of people maybe get stuck in the sloth, or they get stuck in the lust, or they get stuck in the wrath, which would be the anger side of it. And then slowly you default higher and higher up the scale into things that you're going to find on the other side, right? When you got the courage, that's the first step after pride, where you start being able to make much, when you're talking about zooming out, your decisions are much less about that, like, little me, self-preservation, and my wants, my needs, my safety, my survival. And then next on the rung would come acceptance, like you talked about. It's very high. It's a very high place. And then from there, all the forms of peace, which to me, the faith, the hope, the charity. I'd have to look up temperance, and prudence and justice are interesting.
Temperance is just your temperament. Like instead of wrath, it's acceptance. You could call it.
Right, like
You wrong me. I don't have to go crazy over it. I can just, try to understand it. I look at it like that.
Right. Having a choice and having some self-control, which is good. To have self-control is really demonized.
I mean, you could also apply natural law to this list too, which is, you take the 10 commandments or natural law, do no harm, which, when you take the 10 commandments, it's basically do no theft or harm. Right. And when you look on the left side of the sins, you're either harming someone else or yourself to get all that shit, right? And on the right side, you're just all that you don't do any harm to anyone. Again, one of them's doing harm and the other one's not doing anything.
Yes, but this is the trap of ascension in the way that I've looked at it, is that from that place, I mean, we love our hope and salvation and courage and justice. Again, I'm not even sure I would put that in this list of words. The charity, that generosity, that we get attached to those high emotions. They're also expensive. In fact, the higher you go up, the more expensive energetically these things are. And then we never do actually find God, and or have a direct experience of that. And we're mistaking all of these on the right-hand side as our godly experience, and the attachment to them and the aversion to not having them ends up sticking us right where we are.
Yeah, it's like the old joke. There's a joke like, oh, I just became enlightened, so now I'm finally better than you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's charming.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. If you identify with those and become attached to them, is that what you mean? They're just as bad if you identify as that and get attached.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And that's why, like, for example, people love lust because it's one higher than fear. Nobody likes fear. So when you get into lust, even though that's another kind of pain, then it masks the fear that is there. And
and again, on the right side, you can run into the trap of playing the one up yourself game on yourself. Again, like I said, I'm doing yoga now, so I'm better. It's like you're kidding yourself again. Instead of accepting yourself, you're trying to do something. You know what I mean? To identify, you're still. Anytime you do something to try to be something else, you're reaffirming that there's a problem in the first place. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. You are affirming the lack. You got it.
Right. Yeah, you get that. Yeah, right.
Yeah, brilliant. That's good. And then you just see how it plays out in real life. And God bless everybody, but those Christians, oh my gosh, I've never been so attacked in my life when I was trying to be one. And I'm just asking questions like a little kid. I just want to know, and they're like, "Oh, Beth's evil. X her out. She's asking about oneness. Oh, definitely can't talk about oneness. That's some kind of satanic thing." And it's just like, well, what about all these virtues that you supposedly have, right? And what is that? What good has it done you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, being overly virtuous. Should I shut this, or do you want me to keep this open? Or
I'm good for now. If you are, unless you want to show us anything more, you're
welcome to.
Yeah.
I mean, we could say even being overly virtuous could be another sin, actually.
Right. If whatever makes you separate from other people and from yourself, because that's actually where separateness is registered, then yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's
So
also the idea of the self, like you're like, oh, now I'm better. And you're like, well, who's watching who be better and who's watching who be better? So that's some of the Eastern philosophy is like, the joke is you're never going to be different. You're you at the core, whether you watching you fake being better, you're really only one up in yourself, not anyone else, which
yeah,
is the joke kind of.
exactly. And nature does that. Like I watched some of my plants grow, and it's outdoing itself. It was glorious last year, and now it's like this
Yeah.
kind of thing, and it's partying over there, having the fun and the glory of growing.
Yeah. It's kind, it's kind of like they say, like the eyes are the most beautiful gems on the planet. Like there's no more pretty gem than your eyes. Your eyes don't have virtue. They're not trying to be beautiful. They just are.
Nice,
You know what
nice,
I'm saying? Yeah. So,
nice,
and,
exactly.
and we're all trying to we're beautiful. We just don't accept ourselves as that. We're each individual. There's no other you anywhere, ever was, ever will be. You're the rarest, most precious gem. You know what I mean? So, why would you try to change that? It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is crazy. Well, this has been a fabulous conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed so far. Is there anything that we didn't talk about yet that you're hoping to?
Well, we could have went, yeah, into other stuff with the near death, but my slides and my videos weren't going to play sound anyway and everything. So there's no point getting into it. But basically what I wanted to say is, we were talking about what happens after you die, or do you come back, or reincarnation. And again, as we said in the beginning, I don't know. I like all ideas, but the thing is, the main thing to take away, like, what can you do with this? It's going to happen anyway. So get busy living here. If you're afraid of death and you're stunted because you're afraid of dying, it's because you're not really living. I think there was that movie Shawshank Redemption. He says, like, get busy living or get busy dying. So all this obsession over it, I think, is a good sign to look at yourself and say, I'm not happy here. And if I'm not, you should be happy here, unless your neighbors are Israel dropping, what, I can't say it on YouTube, but like,
Yeah.
if your house is exploding, I can understand you're not happy. But I think for a lot of people, yeah, if you have a fear of death, that's usually the main thing holding anyone back from any action. Right.
Wow. Wow, you're rare, Steve. You're rare. That
Yeah. But
know
you know
that.
what I
That's
mean? Like,
awesome. I
I'm
like
on
that.
this big diet. I'm not going to eat. Like all these food people, don't eat that. And that's got hydroglycerins, chloride, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, well, are you going to live to 90 and not eat like a decent pasta, man? Like, come on. Have you ever eaten like a really good creamy pasta? It's got fat and sugar and shit in there that tastes delicious,
Totally. Yeah, that's another archetype on the hero's journey, the hedonist, and I'm here to reclaim that hedonist and not yeah, exactly that, because we are here to inherit the pleasures of the earth. It wouldn't be created as it is if it wasn't, the thing that it is. So that's
Yeah.
fantastic. And
Well, I'd actually, Beth, thanks for having me on, by the way. I'd like to get you on my channel so you can tell me about more of the hero's journey. I'm really fascinated by this and the archetypes and stuff, because I'm with you on that. Again, I do think the spirit and the flesh are connected, and a lot of the religious dogma, or even the Gnostic and Hermetic text, it's all about don't abstain from having any fun here, so that you overcome the pleasures of the world. It's like, dude, why are there pleasures in this world? If you believe God created this place, why did it or he or she put all this fucking fun shit around here if you're not going to get into it? So
exactly.
you can get over it and stuff. You're like, well, to me, that sounds just way more like more of this control ideology. I don't see it like that. In moderation, I don't think you're supposed to just be a total glutton here either.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. No, I look forward to talking to you. I'm going to send you a copy of my book if you like, Stephen. Then we'll get
Yeah,
deeper into that. Yeah, yeah. That sounds good.
yeah.
And then with reincarnation, I did ask a white bearded guru on a mountain in India about reincarnation, and he said, "Don't you have enough to handle in this lifetime? Like,
Exactly.
you need to go chasing." And he wasn't all good by any means, that guy, but that was wisdom right there. And I do have some of my own direct experiences from dreams, from knowledge I shouldn't have, that I didn't study, it just came with me, or whatever it is. Like, I have my own inklings around it, but neither do I focus on it, because I got life right in front of me. Let's take care of that.
Right. Yeah, I'm the same. If the Easterners are right, and people who have had real near-death experiences are probably like, you don't know what you're talking. I admit it, I don't. But if it is, when you find, maybe you do go get a life review or whatever, and there comes a time when you get out of that thing they experience into another one, and your consciousness shuts off, and the next baby that wakes up is the same baby you woke up as. It's happening either way, whether you like it or not, or if you go to heaven or another plane or whatever. So, again, you're supposed to be enjoying the now. So why are you worried about yesterday, tomorrow, or even worse, 30 years from now, or whenever you die? You don't even know when you're going to die. So, I mean, how stupid to miss out on the prize, worrying about the dessert.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and Evan just said a boom here. And loving God is also a pleasure, the deepest one. Yeah, yeah.
Beautiful.
There you go. That is beautiful. Well, I think that's a fantastic note to end on. I've loved talking to you, Steve. I knew I would. And that's often how I choose, based on a sense of it. And then I went looking in your work, and I'm like, oh, this is super interesting. And you just have a way of being so open-hearted that I appreciate very much.
And you too as well. Yeah, I knew when we met, I thought, we got a good chemistry. I like her. But yeah, we'll talk again, and I'll get you on my channel, and you can take me to school.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, everyone. Oh, thank you to school. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whether you like it or not.
I like it. Take me to school. All right.
Awesome. All right. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you, everyone in the chat. And we made them quiet, and they might be contemplating our shadow band. I don't know.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Okay. Have a great rest of your day. Bye for now. And I'll just stay on and make a few announcements.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
Okay. You too. Thanks. Thanks, Steve. So that was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. And I want to make sure to let you know that on Monday, I have Simon Esler coming on. He's been a champion for the family and the hero's journey, with regards specifically to all of the nonsense that's going on. Oh my gosh, in Manitoba, they now have these little weirdo kits going around with some fake, body parts, and it's horrendous. It's even hard to believe, but there it is. So he's a champion for that, and for the young men and women that are going to inherit this earth. So I'm excited about Simon Esler. He's fantastic. Go check him out on Instagram in particular, because here I've got a link handy. He's a filmmaker, and he's got a lot of beautiful shorts there, and a few long pieces as well that you should share around. And then on March 21st, Matt Presti is going to be on talking about his subject. I got a list as long as my arm of things I want to talk to him about. He is an extremely inspiring guy, a musician. I've been listening to his music lately also. And so, yeah, super excited to talk to him about life, the universe, and everything. And then Anna Reitort just agreed to a second interview. She is the author of this book, Krivda, The God Tricks Against the Matrix. And she's got a second book she just sent me called Pretty Blue, a handbook of ruthless gentleness. So we hit it off really well. We're like sisters, and I'm super, super excited to have her on. So keep that all in mind. I also want to just let you know about the House of Free Will, that since we talked about free will so much, and I'm a broken record on that you are welcome to apply to be part of that. It's a members only association where we're getting a little closer to each other. So it's great to have contacts that come and go, and you see people in chats and all of that kind of thing. But if you're in it for more substantial, long-term kind of relationships, then the House of Free Will might be that for you. It is a place for both education and inspiration. There was a time when it was a little bit more Christian, but I can't do that. I can't teach that. I can't bring that. I just know what I know. And so we end up discussing topics that are more around purpose and that sacred calling that we all have, and programming. I'm a broken record, and archetypes. And I do trainings in there, and I do coaching in there. Coming up in September 2024, I'm going to be running a new group through my Journey Code Coaching Certification Training, which has been so amazingly satisfying. It's what I did with the pandemic. Instead of laying down and dying and fighting with everybody all the time, I did some of that, but I tasked myself to create a 7-month training so that coaches could be born, and they are being born. I'm just about to graduate another group in another 4 weeks. So pretty excited about that. It's not too early to talk to me about it if you want to put your hand up. Also, if you haven't done the quiz recently, ask me for a direct link. But if you have never done the archetype quiz, the King Hero archetype quiz, I just created 8 new videos on the archetypes that are actually quite timely and much more in the context of what we're going through today. So that's available. You can still sign up to get my archetypes of controlled up. Just send me your email to beth@bethmartins.com, and I'll sign you up for that and send you all the materials. It's a ton of stuff in there. You get the recording to the workshop that I did at an Acapulco from the stage. The recording is, I did a special video on marriage of the opposites, which is about the masculine and the feminine, the certain and the uncertain, so that you can actually come to a new place, not just point your finger and look at somebody and say controlled up now, which also helps you to save a lot of time. And I think I'll leave it at that for now. So I look forward to seeing you guys back on Monday with Simon Esler. And thank you so much, everyone, for coming. It's been a total pleasure for me. Always is. All right. Bye for now.